There we go. There we go.
All right.
All
Okay,
right.
so yeah, this is just a little bit easier for me, especially since you didn't give me any lines.
Wait, Tom, this is all impromptu. There is no lines.
Yeah, but like in the sense of like you just kept going on and on and on, and like
That is true. That is true. We gotta make an intro we gotta make an intro somehow. Let's can't really do a cold open.
yeah, because you just like, and there you are, Jack. Thank you. That's all I had to provide in this. I'm going home.
Yep. My job here is done. No, no, no. But no. No, no, no. But I
No.
am, but I am hack of the hack Jack show, and that, and as the hack, unlike my name, I actually am a honest to good, upstanding citizen, as far as you know. Want to do a little introduction, Jack? Let the audience know who you are.
I'm Jack, and well, considering this, I'm just your average Jack instead of your average Joe. Don't believe this man. He is a hack. See, he didn't say anything.
That's because you cut off in my microphone, but nonetheless, I'm sure I'll glad to hear it in the editing process. But the real question is, who are we and why are you watching this video? Well, I'm glad you ask. Pretty much as the Hat Jack Show, we are your our new weekly podcast covering all things covering and providing commentaries on all important topics within the pop culture space. Everything from film, television, video games, comics, and those audio feels there, maybe even some music. Jack, you got some music stuff for this week, right?
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, if you like electronic music or anything that's more calm, I got you on that department.
Well, we'll have anyone listening to us at this point. So all you electronic heads, we have something special for you.
Maybe.
And with introductions done, let us go into the sort of the past news of the week that has come by. And so we got two big topics coming up. First big topic that Jack and I will explore would be, are breaths unethical? If you're Square Enix or Sony, then yes, they are. And and our second one, mostly gonna be covered by me, and especially if you are a fan of DC Comics or just comic books in general, then no doubt you have heard the giant news of the shutdown of DC Vertigo. Sad to hear. And now and right here within DC Vertigo, many people many will give you kind of what really happened and how this once great famous DC brand had to close its doors today. But before we get to those two big topics, some little small news that happened during the week. Got anything small to share with us, Jack?
Well, the thing is, I would like to talk about EA for a second. Might be a quick second, just very quick. So apparently, 7 days ago, some people have said that when they were interviewing EA, it was during the court cases for their gambling on loot boxes. The one of the people or representatives of EA just, instead of saying loot boxes that are gambling, they call them surprise mechanics. It kind of compares them like to Kinder eggs.
Now, of all the things to compare them to, I I will say this. I did not expect Kinder eggs, but they were what? They were in UK at the time.
Yes, yes, yes.
So yeah, so I'm guessing that answer was prepared. They somehow knew that was gonna come up, and they're like, okay, what are these Brits like? Okay, got it. We use that. And nonetheless, what are your thoughts, Jack, on this whole surprise mechanics controversy coming from the controversy machine known as the E of the A?
Well, the thing with EA is that they're really playing the system here, especially with all these loopholes, because their argument is pretty much about that all these loot boxes are worthless in real sense because no one and EA doesn't provide an actual market to sell these for example this is for the FIFA things uh, sell these individual gold star players or whatever they're called. So and actually, it's the third party market. So, like for any third party website that sells these things or trades them, they're the ones that are causing this. And then EA is using that as, oh no, we're not the bad guys. Those are the bad guys.
From the sounds of it, it's more. It sounds of it, usual thing, just blaming others for your own mistakes. Would you say that's accurate to that situation?
Oh yeah, and especially because things like FIFA and any like sports game like NBA, they are just cash cows for EA. Most of like FIFA, they I think from what I heard, it takes up like 15% of their actual revenue.
Well, I mean, you can't deny that the EA does have somewhat of a big market on sports titles. I mean, to be honest, when was the last time everyone was excited for the next Pro Evolution Soccer game?
Hey, you're gonna be insulting some soccer fans out there.
Well, we're already making them mad now if we have any Europeans listening because they'll tell us it's football. It's football. We know it's football. We just call it soccer, okay? So shut up.
Yeah,
Any
it's
case,
for the American people. It's for those Americans out there.
yes, for our filthy Americans. Oh, but you also mentioned basketball. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't another company got into big trouble in regards to being a cash cow, or at least something running related within a NBA game recently?
Oh yeah. It's still, of course, EA with this NBA 2K19. Um, so apparently now, out of the blue, it started putting in unskippable ads during the loading screens.
Can you believe that? YouTube practices coming into your video games, and unfortunately, you ain't gonna start no ad blocker on your Xbox One, ladies and gentlemen.
And so from what I heard is that these ads were not a new thing into NBA. It was apparently one of those things where you can view this ad and you'll get some in-game currency or something like that. I don't know. I never play NBA 2K, but that's from what I heard. And now all of a sudden it's just in your loading screens.
Well, well, to to be fair, it's also not new to me too. For long-term Street Fighter Five fans, you will recall that. Ooh, well, I believe it was last year. I think last year that Capcom introduced the ad mechanic. Jake, you familiar with this?
Once when I was doing research on this whole NBA 2 advertisement thing, that was a quick mention of it. I've never seen it before.
Well, I've actually attempted to try to do that since I've been replaying Street Fighter Five recently, and I honestly can't tell you how it really works. From what I've seen from other people's gameplay, all it is just there's an advertisement within the character you're using and within the stage, and that's pretty much it. The benefit of this, you get a few extra fight money.
Oh, that's not so bad. I mean, considering NBA's way of doing the ads is that when the game is loading, once when it's actually done loading, actually, the the ad will still keep playing no matter what.
Ooh, that's lovely. Well, at least with Street Fighter Five, with the option to turn it off. So that might be something the 2K developers might want to install ASAP.
They
ASAP.
won't.
Well, you never know. And speaking of never knowing what's going to happen, Jack. So did you watch Into the Spider Verse?
The movie?
Yes.
Yeah, I saw it. It was pretty cool.
Did you like it? Well, I would just like. Well, guess what? Sony still has plans to make individual Spider-Man movies unrelated. to the particular webhead in the MCU, played by everyone's favorite Brit, Tom Holland. Now, there's Sony still has plans to make a number of Spider-Man character movies, such as Black Cat,
Hmm.
Tarantula, Scorpion, and a whole bunch of others. Maybe even the living vampire himself, Morbius. Now, of course, all of this may or may not may continue to happen if if the second Venom movie does well. Now, have you seen Venom, Jack?
Yeah, it was okay. Yeah, I just love some certain things about Venom, but yeah, it was a good movie, I guess.
Well, I would say, for me personally, I actually really enjoyed it. It is not a great movie, but you know what? You can like things that are not great and not feel bad about them. Nonetheless, that movie was actually incredibly successful for Sony. So I'm not all too surprised that they're trying to make other movies based on other Marvel properties within the Spider-Man world. But here's a problem. Jack. Oh, maybe this will be a big bleep. Uh, J-
Hey, were you trying to insult me there?
uh, for future purpose, I accidentally said Jack's real name, so forgive this weird edit. But as my question was, Jack, are you aware that Venom has his own line of comics?
Yeah, yeah.
Right. So if you're gonna make Venom movies, I mean, you can potentially make much more without having to use Spider-Man at all. But then you come with other characters. For example, um, Jack, would you watch a Black Cat movie?
Um, Not really, because like to me, Black Cat is the same thing as in the sense of like the dynamics or the things around it. You can't have, for example, you can't have a Catwoman without the Batman.
Oh yeah, and Disney certainly tried that many years ago with Halle Berry, and look how well that turned out.
Oh, oh,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Now, now, yeah, but right now it's all up in the air. It really all comes down to if the second Venom movie can outdo the first one. So this is all just speculation and rumor, and you know what? It's very pretty much possible. Sony's got to find ways to not let go of that contract just yet. And if you ask me, hey, whatever makes gives them an early grave, I say that's a good thing. Screw Sony. All right then. But in another small news, um, another small news. So I will admit I'm not the biggest fan of this character, but I do love the genre she's in, and she has one heck of a design. Wouldn't you agree, Jack? Wouldn't you say on Red Sonja? Wouldn't you say?
Oh yeah, when I first saw it, I was
Puts Rainbow Mika to shame.
like,
By the by the way, that's possibly next Christmas present, maybe. Deciding. Any case, so there has been many talks of doing another Red Sonja movie. There was one back in the '80s that ah did okay. Really, many people probably just watched the movie because Arnold was there, and it was the 1980s and Arnold was in it. Oh yeah, you bet people are gonna watch that movie. Nonetheless, we're here to now, and some big news come for the Red Sonja film. Br- It the Red Sonja's former director Brian Singer of X-Men fame and possible sexual allegations that we will not go into at this time has been dropped in favor of a new director named Jill Soloway. Now, who is this person? Well, she is a she is well known for writing and directing a TV series known as Transparent, a trans-themed television series. Now, again, this is small news. This is small news. And this film's still early production. Heck, they haven't even started pre-production yet. But I'd like to say the time that Millennium Films had the bright idea of dropping a director who has experience in making action comic book movies, and Red Sonja is a comic book character, and they drop her in favor of a woman who did a, from what I understand, a pretty meh television series. To give you an idea, to give you an idea, imagine if the next Avengers movies come out and it was directed by the same people who were making Supergirl.
Oh God! And plus, you also just did it again. So leave it out.
Is it? Sorry again for the beep. It's gonna take some time to start using these names. I
and
apologize.
well, it's not gonna be. It's gonna be easy for me to call you a hack.
Oh, I see.
But to
And,
add in
and
to add in some things to you, what you were saying is, first of all, we're not people that just go in, oh, millennials, we're old people. Like, no, we're technically also in the same age group of millennials. Not technically, more actually, we are in the same group. It's just that it gets tiring to have a lot of these people with good talent or great potential in making a certain thing, could be a movie, media, any sort of media, and it just like collapses because we need diversity.
well, that is certainly true. More to I guess to add on to your statement. It's more of putting ideology before storytelling, and with this Red Sonja news, I fear that could be the case, Jack. Where instead of creating a epic tale of a swordswoman who who goes on these fantastical adventures, fighting monsters, evil sorceress, and which is it may end up in hmm, actually, I can't find a good comparison. I actually can't make a comparison. Oh wait, I can't. It may end up like Captain Marvel.
Oh, yeah.
And everybody loves Captain Marvel. Don't you love Captain Marvel, Jack?
Oh no,
Doesn't she inspire you? Doesn't it
no.
inspire you cis white male, as far as the audience is concerned?
Hey. I have plenty of people say that first of all, Captain Marvel herself, and then also the actor is a pretty bad person. It's just pretty rude.
Well, I just think she has a full ego, but with that, who knows? Maybe this might surprise us, or maybe it might surprise us in the bad way. Now, with that done, I think it's about time we go into the big two stories of the day. And Jack, why don't you fill us in with the first big topic?
All right,
Tell me, what do you know of Tifa?
all right. So with Tifa, personally, this might be very sacrilegious to some people, especially since I avidly now play Final Fantasy 14 and other Final Fantasies. I actually haven't played Final Fantasy 7, but I do know how the characters look like and all that stuff. So with Tifa, a lot of people have been apparently having a little bit of an uproar that her model has been changed for the remake. And like the reason why is that some people think it's because, well, more like we find out that Square Enix has this ethics department. And can you please explain what this ethics department does and why that they needed to change Tifa?
Yes, certainly. So Square and also Sony, I believe, they have an ethics department, and pretty much it's a department solely created to kind of cure not I'm sorry, not cure, that's the wrong word for it, to kind of to examine pretty much any artistic decision done within any game, and to see if it's essentially ethical. Meaning, And if you meaning this, if you wanna, let's switch our words out. If you look in the, if you go to your dictionary, you look at the word ethical, you might find another word of equivalence with that. Another word you can use regards replacement of ethical would have to be moral, which leads to the question. So it leads, no, sorry, not this question. It leads to this: that Tifa wasn't just redesigned to fit a new art style or to even, to get away from kind of the anime-ish look that the original Final Fantasy VII had. No, if that was the case, this wouldn't be a story. But no, she was redesigned because apparently having a big-breasted waifu is now considered immoral. What can't you? Wow,
And like,
wow, wow.
and speaking of
Jack,
that,
Jack,
that having,
Jack,
hmm
Jack. I'm sorry to say, but you're gonna have to close down your FF14 account because you have so many immoral character models in that game. I'm sorry, man.
oh no, well, too bad.
Gotta purge it. Gotta purge it. I know you play as a Lalafell, but you know what you gotta do.
Hey, Lalafels are not immoral. I don't do anything weird to that Lalafell.
As far as the audience knows.
No, as far as I know, too.
But Jack, as you were gonna say.
Oh yeah, so speaking of this, like especially going now to the side of Sony, why this is also relevant to Sony is that they're also doing the same thing to other games, and not just to this is not just to Final Fantasy VII. This is not just a random thing that we found for that game. It's actually happening to a lot of games around, mostly actually in the Western area.
What are the odds?
So, from what I've been researching, uh, this ethics department for Sony is actually mostly for the Western hemisphere, or like the Western side, where America side, all that stuff, for the Americas, because in America we do tend to have uh, a big growing of liberalism, and also the Me Too movement is really it's just changing up the way we look at things and all that stuff.
And I also like to add a little cherry on this cake. Jack, you actually want to know where Sony of America, where their location is in?
Um, well, let me first guess it and see if I got it right.
All right.
So I guess it's probably in California.
Oh, you bullseye! You are actually correct. Specifically, it is in San Fran, and well, there's a lot of things people associate San Fran with, and liberalism is probably one of the highest ones. At least the extremist point of it. The very extreme point of liberalism. So, again, probably doesn't mean anything, but it's a little food for thought.
Yeah, like a lot of these companies nowadays, especially that they center around in California, they are kind of forced. I mean, maybe some of the people inside those companies are somewhere in between the whole spectrum of politics, but they'll be forced either way because of the what is around them or with all this politics. And
Def-
and like just to see why this is wrong, especially having censorship for why we're so adamant about censoring, why they uh, uh, adamant against the censoring of boobs is not just because the censoring of boobs, but it's really because this is just one step into the door, and eventually this would get into other types of censorship and make games pretty much stale or too careful.
and I agree wholeheartedly. So, now, I guess to play a little devil's advocate here, one could argue that this can't be seen as censorship as there is no government entity forcing Sony or Square to make the following changes that they did to their games. Well, technically, Well, first of all, that's kind of a not. I don't think that's a really good argument. Trust me, I've heard that argument. But I will say this though: those companies are within their rights to do whatever to their products. That being now, but as I recall, Jack, not everything they do is always best for the customer.
Oh yeah, especially for this one game that it's pretty infamous for a lot of the more anime otaku types. There's a game called Senran Kagura, sorry. And so in this newest iteration of the game, they have a mode where it's called the intimacy mode, and just by hearing about it, you probably get the idea of what it's supposed to be. Kind of grab the girls, and yeah, it's a little cringy to me, but some people, you do you, you do you. But
You sure you don't want to play this game in front of a public transportation, Jack? This sounds like a very Japanese thing to do. You ever
no,
see you ever seen those photos where uh, a grown man is just reading pornography in a train out in the open?
no, but like, so
That happens, but
yeah, that
doesn't
does
mean it's not
happen.
weird. Oh, Japan.
So the point where I'm going with this is that as I said before, the ethics department is technically only for the Western side. They don't do this for Japan. So like that Senran Kagura game, apparently from what I heard, it could have been changed or I don't know, but the game in Japan, the Japanese version of the game, has the intimacy mode. But for the Western version, it's not there at all.
And unfortunately, this is only but one of many examples of very similar game mechanics being exclusive to the Asian market. There's been other games that fall into uh, these changes. Games such as Fire Emblem, Conquest and Birthright. The what was it? The Dead or Alive volley, volleyball game, the third one,
Oh yeah.
which definitely got some headlines.
Hmm.
And I believe this might have happened to a previous Samurai Kagura game, although I'm not too sure about that. But yeah, so I think what it really comes down to, Jack, is that these things has happened before. It's just now is now Square, along with the respective companies of and its and respective other game companies who have a big Western market in Japan. They just now are having a name in a department to kind of handle these things instead of just listening to whatever whatever their social media is saying. So they pretty much made the process much easier.
Yeah, but that's kind of like the whole thing with the Western thing. It's a problem because sure some people don't care that I can't grow pixels anymore. Ooh, what why is it pertain to me? Like, well, here's the thing. Imagine this. So
Mm-hmm.
with Japan, they technically have with Japan, they have this whole thing. They have the game Senran Kagura full price. That's everything you have. With Western one, it's still full price even though it's missing one element of the game. So imagine having it be like uh you bought yourself, let's say, a shooter game, cross platform, cross server. You can play against people from Japan. Apparently the internet's good and all that stuff. And then you're realizing, hey, this guy is killing me pretty quickly in the game. Wait, I've never seen that weapon before. Actually, I've never seen this whole set of weapons. Why? And you realize that you bought a $60 game for, let's say, only 10 levels of this game. What meanwhile Japan, they have the same game, same price, and they have 20 levels. And there's kind of the problem. This whole thing is that you're excluding content and still having the same price.
That one's a fair one. And I'd also add in, this is how I view. I think as a problem just as equivalent is also the artistic integrity of a game. Say what you want about the games we mentioned suffering this. Yes, they're cheesy. Yes, they're pretty much very extremely niche audience. That doesn't change the fact that it doesn't stop with just Tifa's design. All of a sudden, you can have these artistic changes made to either the plot, the setting, the way the characters themselves, heck, maybe even marketing. This type of stuff can affect just the entire process of making a game in general. And so, whatever that original vision was that these developers had in the beginning is then diluted in order to fit what is deemed by the little department as ethical. Meaning, ladies and gentlemen, that you can have a that you can that through this you may never have a game like, I don't know, Near Automata.
Oh man, I like that game.
I mean, me too. I still have yet to finish it, but imagine that game being diluted from its current form.
No. Oh,
I mean,
that would
I
suck.
mean, forget the design. Just imagine the type of the storytelling that they won't be allowed to tell.
Oh yeah, they're like just for example, this might be some like minor details, but like apparently from the Devil May Cry series, they have the same thing, where in the Western game, a lot of things like anything that's nudity is censored. Meanwhile, in Japan, it's actually you can see them buck naked.
Yes, and he actually means literally by that. It's and really you don't see much. It's just you see the crack. That's really it. But here's an even bigger one, Jack. Here's an even bigger one.
Hmm.
Do you recall the game Sensuous Sacrifice?
Uh, it sounds familiar, but no, not really.
Well, pretty much that game got a huge lot of praise. Came out, I believe, last year. And pretty much it was a game that kind of centered around uh the a story about depression. Now, obviously, it wasn't just about it, but they figured out a creative way to tell a story with that type of messaging about depression and what it does to people, and they do it in this very artistic and creative way. And that game is very highly favored to many people. Now, and the game talks to you about many very real subjects, such as the one I mentioned, depression, suicide, and as well, I believe even post-traumatic stress disorder, if I'm correct.
Oh wow.
Now, if that game went through its own little ethics department thing, that game wouldn't even be even not even a freaking polygon of that game would be made, because that would be seen as no way we can't make a game like that. It's very unethical. We can argue that it's kind of hyperizing the idea of this said subject I was talking about, even though the game presents it in a way that it shows that the not only the realities of these problems, but of how it affects the person suffering from them and the I'm sorry, how it affects the person suffering from them and those around them.
Mhm.
No ethics department, you get a game like that where it really can explore those really deep, those really um, deep concepts. With no ethics department, if that game even remotely makes a person in the department uncomfortable, oh, no way, Jose. That game is not getting greenlit. So to me, besides the financial situation that Jack mentions, I believe the artistic part of game development is what's really in danger in terms of my eyes.
So really, this all just sums up to saying that it's dangerous to not just the consumer, but it's also dangerous for developers. Um, Pretty much, it's the restriction of art and the restriction of choice for everyone.
Yep. And if Square and Sony continues to have these type of departments operate within their games, they're this is just the tip of the iceberg. You know, it always starts out something small, but eventually the snowball effect's gonna happen. It's gonna lead to a much bigger story down the line. And I'm telling you, Jack, I will be there when it comes, because I have a feeling it might be coming sooner than later.
Well, I kind of hope not, because I do like to have my games as they are.
Yeah, or simply, you know what you can do to combat it?
Boycott? No?
Are you there?
Yeah.
Okay. As I was saying, do you know what you can do to combat it?
Boycott?
Uh, well, no, not necessarily boycott. I mean, you don't even have a Sony PlayStation, so you're already doing that. But better would be to uh support other developers who don't have this stuff.
Oh, what do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, from so boycott is to me. To me, this is my own personal opinion. Boycotts uh, they don't really work, and most of the time people say them out of kind of like an in the moment decision. Eventually, that kind of drive then kind of falters away. Then you either forget what you're boycotting in the first place, or you just move on to the next hot issue. What will be better is pretty much this will be a very kind of a little capitalist argument, but just support the competition. If you don't like what Sony's doing to this stuff, well, guess what? Either go straight to PC, get Nintendo stuff, or go to Microsoft.
Oh, I see what you mean. Okay, so exactly what I'm doing right now.
Exactly. I'll tell you this much, folks. Um, and I'll tell you this much, folks. I put some time to PS4, but I've put in a lot more time in my Nintendo Switch. Just saying. And with that, any final thoughts on this topic before we move on to the next big one?
No, I think we pretty much covered a good amount of what's happening.
All right then. Well, let's try to switch some gears over and go into and go into another small, large part. If you catch that, a small, large part of pop culture, one where everyone's is either extremely big fan of or they're vaguely familiar with it. We're going to the realm of comics. Now, as we mentioned in the beginning, the big discussion here is regards to the shutdown of DC Vertigo. Now, uh, Jack, we talked off air, and as far as you know, you're not completely familiar what DC Vertigo is. Is that correct?
Yeah, I've never even heard that there's a sub branch for DC.
Well, there was, not anymore. And to inform our audience, there, DC Vertigo was a specific type of comic brand under the the DC company, in which they mainly specialize in comics intended for much more mature readers, and as well dealing with much more mature topics. Most of them were also kind of supernatural in nature, but that wasn't strictly that. Many famous books that come off this line were of Sandman, Swamp Thing, I believe Lucifer, and Metropolitan. Now I'm gonna confess here, guys. Unfortunately, being as the those millennials as I am, the brand itself is not close to me. However, however, The shutdown is what is giving me worry, but Jack, yet Jack. You know what else is giving me?
What is it giving you now?
It's giving me hope.
Hope?
It's giving me hope. Yeah. Now I'll explain why. I'll explain why in a second. So now, as to the reason why DC Vertigo shut down, it's actually a pretty basic reason. Um, they weren't selling. The new Vertigo line of books were not selling. And and let me ask you this, Jack. If a book is not selling, what does that tell of the quality of said book?
Oh, well, if it's not selling, then it's just bad.
Yeah. And trust me, you can't blame any marketing on this. This is under the DC banner, and trust me, if Disney, I'm sorry, not Disney, DC, these are gonna let you know what books they have on sale for the most part. At least better than Marvel. At least better than Marvel right now. And so, now I want you to hear kind of the books that they had going on, what led to DC's Vertigo's downfall. The very first one. Ever heard of a book called Border Town?
No, I have not actually.
Well, to summarize, it was a comic book about a border town in the South, and quite honestly, no one kind of knew what the story was going. They got canceled pretty early, but pretty much it was supposed to be some sort of this writer's his weird view on the whole border crisis thing we have going on right now. That sounds fun.
Oh, yeah.
Yep, and also the book is, you know, a lot of weird racial stuff in it, especially in regards to Hispanics and the gringos.
Yep, that's what you want in a book, especially when you want to just like sit down, stop thinking about the politics or what's happening in the world. You want to just sit down, read a book, and go back into the politics.
Yep. So, but that was the worst. That was the worst of its problems. If you want a more, I'm gonna plug in a YouTube channel here. But if you want a more in-depth of what Border Town actually is, I would recommend checking out just some guy's review of this series. He goes really in depth into, that's his name, folks. Just some guy on YouTube, and he goes really to death, kind of the horribleness that is Border Town. And but aside from that, they have also great famous books such as Goddess Mode, written by everyone's favorite Zoe Quinn. If you of Gamergate fame, that is just asking to for you to be shot in the leg. I
Yeah.
have no idea I don't know, no idea how DC allowed someone who never written a comic book and is pretty infamous to have her own comic.
Because,
Suffice to suffice to say, the less said about that book, the better. And so, again, those are just two examples. There was probably, I think, at least one book that might have been worth reading out of what eight or nine. That's not a. If this was a baseball, that is a terrible batting average. But nonetheless, you got tons of books that don't sell. So that means the brand's not making any money, and then you go into the controversies with regarding to the writer of Boarding Town and his little uh, sexual escapades, as I'm putting it lightly, and as well just the very and as well just the fact of the matter is that people didn't want to read these books. So not only you got controversy within the writers, you got books that people that not even a comic book fan wouldn't even want to read. You know, when people see that DC Comics Vertigo, they expect books of high concept, high art, asking those deep questions. Instead, you're gonna get a, you're instead you got a book about a kid in a classroom saying how he's half Mexican and half white.
you know, I've never like with all the time you talk about comic books, you like off air, and that's when we've known each other. You did kind of put this point out a long time ago that yeah, you never really do just see a good old comic where it's just like here's the bad guy, he's robbing something. Oh, here's the superhero saving the day. It's always having to involve some sort of politics, and it just gets so you get so burnt out over all the politics that everything has to involve politics nowadays.
Yeah, and not only that, and this is not even revolving politics, but some writers at Marvel and DC just can't write simple stories anymore. You know, something's gotta be convoluted to the point that it makes even Metal Gear blush. I mean, just you don't have to buy it, but like look up Dark Knight's Metal and come back to me and tell me if that made any sense to you. Oh my gosh! But but as of today, DC Vertigo's no more, and now DC will do a new brand. And DC will be rebranding themselves with DC Kids, DC Comics, and DC. I believe the last one was Black. Essentially, they have they have divided kind of their lines of comics to one center for kids, their main superhero stuff, and books for more mature readers. So that's what they'll be going on as of now. Hopefully, this works out. But hey, but I may not be being to Vertigo, but I understand its importance. I understand greatly its importance. It for to go down, not in no blaze of glory, but as a tepid match. Uh, makes breaks your heart. But I also mentioned why I have hope for this. Well, guess what? Well, you know why I have hope?
What?
This hopefully will make people realize to start support independent comics. You know, if you want those comics with either you just want your regular superhero stories, or maybe you're into high the the very artistic and very and more mature storytelling that goes on. There is plenty of indie comics being developed right now, either through sites like Indiegogo or Kickstarter, or just go through smaller publishers, and you'll find stuff that you enjoy that the big two companies aren't willing to offer you. So I will say that this at least makes me more aware that hey, that there's other places for you to go look for if Marvel and DC ain't working for you. So at least that's a little silver lining for me.
Yeah, well, that's good because especially knowing you with your love of comics, I'm not much of a comics fan. I just know that the characters exist and I just watch the movies. But yeah, and
Yeah,
anything.
he's got the diet Marvel and the diet DC.
Yeah, but oh man, you just made me lose my train of thought.
It's alright, it's alright. But then again, I say those are the two, kind of the two big, at least stories interesting to us happens 2 week happen us to this week. So before we go into our next session, I want to also say, since we're still talking about comics, a little, a little funny thing that happened. Well, at least I find funny. So I mentioned this to you, Jack, that the new XM books were gonna get a new writer.
Hmm.
Now, as the news writer is, his name is Jonathan Hickman, and for the big fans out there, he he wrote uh amazing stories regarding to Avengers, and I believe the Fantastic Four. Now, I haven't read all of his work, but I actually read some of his Avengers work. And you want to tell me how good he is, Jack? Want to tell you how good he is?
Well, how good is he?
He makes Captain Marvel likable.
Oh, that's
That,
interesting. Huh.
that's how good he is. But and so now, and he's coming back to Marvel to write the XMen books. And a few days ago, he tweeted this out. He tweets, X-Men continuity is some nonsense. There are no rules here. There is no order, just random, unconnected gibberish. I just wrote 5,000 words of when someone can and cannot utter the phrase Omega level. This is a job I have in the United States of America.
Damn.
That kind of shows why it's very hard for people to get into X-Men, because X-Men in and of itself is oof. But it actually might present something cool. Because if you're this is a little right this is a little advice for those who want to create the big epic stories. A little advice: uh, make a Bible. And Jack, do you know what I mean by make a Bible?
Uh, First of all, I think you're not meaning literally make a martyr of someone and actually make a bunch of individual stories and have apostles, right?
No, no. That's the Holy Bible. No, I just mean Bible. But no, what I really mean is that it's essentially create create set rules and guidelines for your world.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. To give you an example, give you an example, Jack. Halo has his own Bible. At least when Bungie was in the reigns back in the day.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Now that you say that, yeah. Usually it was with the chief. He either did not talk or talked very, very little.
Right.
And
So you get the idea. Now I was surprised X Men didn't have any kind of written rules or guidelines for like what 60 years.
that would explain why their timelines in the comics are so messy.
Oof. It'll explain why the characters are so messy. Nonetheless, hopefully with Hickman coming in and and his comic, I believe coming out in July. I want to say what was? Oh yeah, that's right. His X-Men comic, House of X #1, coming out July 24th. Hopefully, he can bring some structure and order into the chaos that is the X-Men franchise. Oh, by the way, by the way, regarding the X-Men, their newest movie is doing so well that half of its viewings have been pulled from theaters. So, if you're wondering why you couldn't watch Phoenix now and you live in those places, well, there you go. The movies make literally not making any money that cinemas have to take out the movie so that they can make room for other movies that are a bit more financially viable than Dark Phoenix.
Ouch.
Just just a little mention of that. So that because that thing goes into this whole big discussion, and frankly, we don't got that time to go into the whole Dark Phoenix debacle. But with that, we go on into excuse me. With that, we go on into a little final segment, and here we give our little own personal recommendations, what we're reading, what personal recommendations, and as well what we got looking forward to into the coming week. So Jack, why don't you take the reins and give us give us your recommendations of what you're going to be doing for the next week.
All right. So, for this week's recommendation from me is going to be involving music, and for you guys that are really into electronic or even just like something more of a softer feel, uh, because some people think electronic's too loud. I would suggest this one artist, specifically this album called Adventure, the deluxe edition by Marion. Hopefully, I'm saying that name right. I've listened to him for years, and if I did not say that name right, I am going to crucify myself.
Well, hey now, at least invite me over.
Then you can make my Bible.
No. I will just make it. I will just make a weird tale about how your blood went into this cup, and now this cup gives everyone instant PC knowledge. But continue on.
So with Marion, his most of his music is actually very, very mellow and it's melodic, and I think it would be a good start for people that are not into electronic to get into it. If you haven't heard anything by Marion, he did make a group, like a collaboration with a person named Porter Robinson with a song called Shelter. I'm pretty sure you have heard this song in the radios. It's been in most of or in YouTube because it was trending for quite a while when it came out.
And Jack, I might ask, is there a specific track you want our audience to listen to kind of get into to get an idea of this album? Is there a specific track?
Oh, yes, 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 yes. I have many tracks, but the one I think I'll recommend to people is in the Adventure album. It's called Innocent, featuring Akilo. It's track number 10 to be exact.
And now, as someone who's not into the electronic music that as I am, uh, Jack, would this be something a song that I like as someone who's not into this genre?
Oh yes, yes, because well, for Marion, he does have a good balance between having songs that are just purely music based and to songs that have a vocals and his type of music genre. I like yes, it is electronic, but I would say it's more like it's very funky. Like literally the word funky. Like you know what I mean.
Well, I do. Hopefully the audience does, but I'm guessing a lot of groovy bass lines.
Yes, 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 yes. I love those bass lines.
Well, there you go. And with that, is there anything you're gonna anything worth noting that you're gonna be playing, watching, maybe listening to this coming week until the next podcast?
Oh yes, yes. So I am going to be waiting for the early access release for Final Fantasy XIV's new expansion, Shadowbringers. Expect me to be playing on Cactar. If you see little Lalafell running around, like his name is Karmatic Rakma, then that's me.
Well, well, hopefully you just didn't dox yourself in FF14 right there. That's all I can say about
I'll be
that.
fine.
That's what they all say at first.
Hey, the server's already congested. No one's ever gonna get back in there.
Yep. Well, I was glad to hear that it's glad to hear that you're back in the FF14 grooves, especially with our little past talks. Now, as for my recommendations, surprise, surprise, I got a comic to recommend. So, Jack, want to know the benefits of not having too much money?
What are the benefits of not having too much money?
Well, yeah, the benefits of having too much money is that you start to remember that the public library exists.
Oh, never really thought of that.
Yep, and the public library also carries a whole bunch of trade paperbacks and graphic novels. So, with a comic geek like me, you can imagine how happy I am to get all these old books for nothing. And so, for this week, I recently read a what would be Amazing Spider-Man number 515 to 518. This will be the J. Michael Straczynski run, and the story arc is called the Skin Deep arc. And I actually would recommend, if you can either find it in a comic shop or in your own public library, to actually give it a read. It's If I had to give a summation of what the story is pretty much uh, what if a character like Peter Parker, what if what if he went through the same superpower transformation like Peter did, but never really matured or grew up. Because if you recall, Peter was someone who was very much bullied in his high school years, but thankfully through maturity and all the life things that happened to him, he grown. Well, the story explores a character who goes through a similar life like Peter, but never had that Uncle Ben moment.
Hmm. That's actually
So,
very interesting.
mm-hmm. and as well, it's its own. And as well, you don't have to read anything prior to the story, and it has somewhat of a cliffhanger ending, but nothing that makes you feel, but nothing that would make you feel unsatisfied. It is more just setting up for the next story arc within the series. But yeah, again, I recommend Amazing Spider-Man, the story arc Skin Deep, and if you're looking for the individual comics, there will be Amazing Spider-Man number 515 to 518. So, and as for what I'll be doing, I'm doing a few things. Number one, I am gonna be trugging along to two games at the moment. Fist of the North Star Lost Paradise and Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, two games, super different, but I love them both equally the same. I essentially need to finish Breath of the Wild because that sequel is gonna come in sooner than I know it, and oh my gosh, I don't want another Xenoblade Chronicle situation.
Hey, I
And
why not just go into Ganon's castle naked?
you overestimate my gaming abilities, good friend. And lastly, I will also be reading another graphic novel, this time a Ant-Man story. Keep in mind, I've never read an Ant-Man book, so who knows? Who really knows how I'm gonna feel about this one? And yeah, that's pretty much what you got. What I have for me. And so with that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening to the very first episode of the Jack Show. We apologize for a lot of the little errors that have come up through the recording. This is our first episode, so we will love to hear your feedback. We'll love to hear your comments, and if you so enjoyed us, please give us a like and a subscribe. Well, Jack, any last words you want to say?
Yep. Make sure you also ring that bell because that will give you notifications that when we put up a new episode.
I completely forgot about that bell. Thank you, Jack. You saved my hind yet again. All right, everyone. Have a good night, and we are off.